Can I remake a Vampire Survivors-like game in Godot? Today I'm back, sharing my process of learning how to be a game dev. I'd been playing a lot of Vampire Survivors and thought it would be a good idea for me to make a similar prototype. Unlike my previous prototypes, using simple shapes and the Godot icon for every game object wasn't going to cut it this time. I went over to itch.io and opened gameart.org, links in the description, to quickly grab some assets for fantasy and medieval style characters and monsters. I also grabbed a level background and got to work. My art skills are still a work in progress, so this would be a good set of temporary assets for now, but don't worry, I'm slowly chipping away at drawing and slowly getting better. I started knocking out features for the prototype I dubbed Wizard's Keep, a simple game where waves of enemies would spawn and attack you in a stationary tower. As you valiantly defended it and defeated enemies, you would gain experience that would allow you to upgrade the keep and enable you to get further and further each time. So I got to work. I made a fire projectile, I made an ice projectile that breaks apart into smaller pieces, I made enemy stats and decided on a spawning system that weighs different enemies differently in terms of what should be spawned and when. I added text that would pop up when an enemy or the player was damaged. I included a critical hit chance that would change the color and damage shown in that damage text, and I also added resistances and weaknesses to certain types of damage depending on your projectile and the enemy that was hit. And then finally, I tracked stats and added a UI showing your health. Next came the part that is a must, I believe, in any prototype you make. You have to ask yourself, is this fun? And then follow that up with why or why not. I've put many hours into playing Vampire Survivors, and I've enjoyed it a lot. So I thought taking inspiration from a few of its mechanics would make for a fun game, but that simple outlook was wrong. My prototype was essentially as fun as a clicker game. And no offense to you clicker game fans out there, but I had made a game where the only control you have as a player is where you point and when you fire a projectile. And while an actual game would have more features and polish, this core gameplay loop would still remain in a more polished version. Essentially, I made a game that was more fun to make than it was to play. And believe me, it was a lot of fun to make. So how should I go about making this game more fun, and what makes Vampire Survivors more fun to begin with? Well, Vampire Survivors has hordes of enemies that get more and more difficult and numerous over time. It has elite versions of enemies which have different colored outlines, or sometimes a scaled up version of the regular enemy sprite. It also has really fun power-ups and weapons that can combine to produce better weapon buffs. It also has a choice of different characters you can unlock, as well as different upgrades you can make using the currency you earned in-game between runs. And finally, you have more control. Despite the fact that you don't decide when you fire your weapons, you shoot out projectiles, you still can move around, decide to explore the map, kite enemies, move around, and it feels like you have more control in a game where, in reality, there isn't that much. I dived back into my prep documents and started rethinking my core gameplay. I thought of potentially having a skill tree that would mutate your base projectile, so you start off with a firebolt and eventually, with enough mutators, it becomes a fireball. That base projectile would be chosen in a character select screen as you picked the school of magic for your wizard. And believe me, I went on this tangent in my prep documents of all these different schools of magic. And I then thought of all the different levels and environments the players could select, each with its own unique pool of enemies to spawn. And this went on for days. I kept planning more and more instead of making a game. And I realized that the prototype was no longer in the prototype stage. Instead, I was adding more and more as it came into my mind, and I needed to stop the scope creep. Part of the reason I've been making so many prototypes is to expand my ability to one day make and release a game. The benefit of making all these small but distinct prototypes is that I can push myself little by little outside of my comfort zone. And at this point, I think I've learned how to start a project, but another important aspect is that I need to learn how to finish a project. As difficult and as frightening as it is to start a daunting project, it can be even more daunting to decide when to say that it's good enough, and it's time for the world to see it. And that's what I did. Here's my prototype's final form. And that doesn't mean I'll never work on this project again, but I believe that for now, I've learned everything I can from this prototype. I had so much fun making Wizard's Keep and brainstorming all these features for a potential future version of it. But more features don't make a game good. Well-made and thought-out features do. And as I develop more and more, I'm confident I'll be able to get to the point where I can solve the issues and overcome the obstacles that stopped Wizard's Keep from going any further. And I can't wait to get there. So that's my Vampire Survivors inspired prototype. and I hope that the insights I learned while making it can be valuable to you in some regard. If you've ever had a game idea that has gotten way too big in the planning stage, believe me, I get you. But with all the excitement and motivation, I know you can distill the ideas down to their purest forms and make something truly fun to play. If you enjoyed this video of me talking about my game development journey, then please subscribe and check out some of my other videos and shorts. If you've ever had a game idea you decided to scrap for getting too big, tell me about it in the comments. Bye for now, and good luck with whatever passions you want to follow. Until next time.